All right. So this morning, Mastermind Mondays, as always, a great way to start the week where golf coaches come together to learn about the skills that they can implement to grow their business, to help their students and grow their facility. So let's go ahead and bring this presentation up to today. I'm going to press present right here so we can see it in this mode. And I'm going to get all of your wonderful smiley faces over here to the right so I can see it. I see. All right, here we go. All right. So I'm going to start off with opening up the chat box right here. I'm going to say hi, and I'm going to pose a question to you all today. And it's going to start off with, this is my number one on-course game for low handicap golfers. But I want to know from each of you, what is the area that you work on with your single-digit golfers? What's the most important areas that you seem to be in, always working on to help them to go low? So the question as it reads today is, what do low handicap golfers need to go lower or low? Okay. So I want you to I put a few examples in here. 30 to 90 yards, Wayne. I love that one. Distance control. I would say for me, distance control, definitely inside of wedges. A great short game, accuracy off the tee box, So everybody just go ahead and chime in if you could. Course management, John Wood, good one there. Let's, keep them coming. Let's see what we all got. Let's see what they're doing. I'm not seeing everybody filling them in. I'm sure you're just happily typing. But let me put it this way. My experience has been that with low handicap golfers, I kind of always thought like I needed to do something completely different. And I felt like, I had to be that much of a better coach. And I think for me, it's always been is when I simplify it down to the basics and come back, to my low handicap golfers, how they get better is just a magnified level of what I'm doing with my juniors. Okay. And let me explain. So with my juniors, we go out on the golf course and we play from 100 yards and you have to shoot 39 and move forward. And then you get a yellow hat and an orange hat and a red hat and you keep moving back. And so it's about, learning how to go low, learning how to get comfortable hitting it close. All these things, it's just another level. So I keep seeing mindset and game management. All right, I'm going to pick on a few others. Diana, I don't see anything. Donald, come on, everybody. Show me a few things here, okay? Oh, putting protocol, I like that. All right, cool. So what I'm going to dive into today is what I do on the golf course with my low handicap golfers. Now, to me, that would be somebody who's shooting right around 80 or below. Okay, that's what I would consider, a golfer who's trying to take it to that next level, who's really trying to break par and is uncomfortable going below their handicap. And so there's something that I talk about, which is the thermostat. And I wanted to sort of talk about that a little bit before we dive into this. And I believe that we all have a thermostat set inside of us for many areas of our life. But in golf, we set it to this range of, I'm very comfortable between shooting, let's say 70, 77 and 82. That's my range. And I feel comfortable there. So if I go out on the front nine and shoot 36, well, then that would mean I'm going to shoot a 72. And so inevitably what ends up happening is it kicks in, the heater kicks in and it raises up and I shoot 42, 41, 43 on the back and I shoot my normal 79, 80, 81. So the goal here is to look at if I'm out on the golf course and I'm uncomfortable and I'm not shooting the scores that I want, I'm always going to trend back to that median, that mean number in the middle. So for example, if I shoot 44 on the front nine, well, I'm not an 88 shooter and I end up shooting a 37 on the back nine. Oh, and again, I'm shooting right around my 78 to 81. So I think a big part of this is you all talk about this idea of, mental, the mindset and learning how to score. It's a huge part to it, is helping them to break free of what they're used to doing, which is teeing off the white tees or off the blue tees every week, playing the same golf course over and over again. And they kind of get into that rut. And we've got to help them out of it. Now, for my high school golfers, what I find is that they improve, and their scores keep dropping and dropping and dropping. And then they sort of plateau because they get to a level where it now is more about the mental game. It's more about management, and their skills sort of reach that level where they're not going to shoot any lower by just heading to the driving range. They're just not going to improve their ball striking that much at that age to be able to shoot sub 70 consistently without learning how to score. So what I want to do today is run through what I see. So I'm going to move some of these boxes around right here. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of run through with you what I see to be some of these key areas. So the first thing is, I think we've all got to learn how to get comfortable going subpar. Okay, I'm sure you've all had that experience where you've been 4 or 5 under maybe, and you're like, whoa, I'm 5 under. And then just a couple holes later, you're even, and you're thinking, okay, what just happened? Well, we weren't comfortable getting there. So I want to first of all address what are the problems that we see and the areas that our players need to work on. So the first one is, I think that my players need to learn how to hit their driver on tight holes. So if you're going to go subpar, I'm always, teaching, put the ball in play, get in a good position. But if you really want to shoot low, you actually need to be very comfortable hitting driver on tight holes, because you can put it in play a long way. Because if you do lay back, we all know that you don't make a lot of birdies from 150 to 200 yards. You make them from inside of 100 yards. And so I think one of the key elements I'm looking for when I'm on the course is, how can I create a game that's going to force them to hit driver and hit it straight? Okay. The next thing is proximity from the hole with their wedges. I've got to help my students to understand that if you want to make birdies, you make them when you're chipping and pitching and wedging. You don't make them when you're hitting 6 irons, which means you've also got to make putts that are inside of 10 feet, maybe 12 to 15 feet max. But people aren't making a ton of birdies from 30 to 40 feet. So I've got to highlight in this playing lesson, how do I help them to go ahead and understand how important it is to get the ball close to the hole? Okay, because you're not making birdies if you're not close to the hole. Next thing that I'd be looking for is highlighting to them that they need to improve their putting from 8 to 15 feet. And the reason why I say this is that my players that I work with, I work so heavily on 3, 4, 5, and 6 foot putts to get them to 80, to get them comfortable shooting 80, that there's not so much more that they can do. They can't get to 99% from 5 feet. It's just not going to happen. So I've got to help them to highlight that they're usually going to be wedging the ball about 8 to 15 feet from the hole. And with that said, how do I go ahead and help them to make more of those putts? The next thing I want to do is help them to feel comfortable under par. So the only way to get comfortable under par is be under par a lot. Okay, so this game has got to make sure it's going to hit all of these points, right, where they have an opportunity to get under par, because most of my players, for example, if they're playing off the tips, they might go under par, twice a year. So they're totally uncomfortable with it, because I'm under par for the first time in 6 months. They make a couple doubles, they're over par and back into their comfort level. And then finally, I want to make sure they have tons of opportunities for birdies. I want them to feel what it's like to play on tour, where you're hitting 8 irons into par 5, 6 irons into par 5s, wedges on par 3s, even if the hole's 180 yards, right? And you're getting a lot of opportunities to hit it close. So with that said, I'm going to look down the list here, and I'm going to pick on some people right here. And I'm going to pick on, let me see, I'm going to pick on, who I'm going to go with. I asked Jim Estes, but Jim's with his trainer today, so I'm super proud of him for being on there. I'm gonna pick on Donald Pulowski. So Donald, if you can unmute yourself, give me a thumbs up if you're there. And then if Donald doesn't unmute, John Eisentraut, I'm coming right after you. What are we doing with our better golfers? Or let me ask this, anybody on here, is there anything that I'm missing here that you really think to help somebody to go low that I'm missing out on here? If so, go ahead and unmute and just chime in. Scott Stiles, you're welcome to chime in. Is there anything that you feel like that I'm missing on how to teach someone how to shoot sub 70? There you go, Scott.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I found, my course has a ton of high level players, like sub 2 handicaps that can go low. And I'm amazed, none of them know how to practice. They don't know what to do when they go practice.
Okay.
It ties in with all the stuff you're saying here,
Yeah.
but just how to practice this type of stuff. They like to practice and they put time in, but they have no idea what to do.
Yeah. And I find a lot of them put a lot of work in on their games, but I tend to see them on the range, on the putting green, working from 4 feet and lag putting. And I kind of almost feel like that's a great way to learn how to make pars. You know what I mean? Get your ball striking decent enough that you're in play, and lag putt and short putt so you don't make bogeys, right? So like you're saying is, it's almost like they've got stuck in a rut, that this what got them to a 3 or a 2 handicap. But to get to a +2, it's a different set of skill sets that I think you have to sharpen. Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So the other side to this that I see is, so I've got to get them comfortable going subpar, but then I've also got to build that mental toughness. So I agree with a ton of you that put it in there as like this idea of mental management, emotional management when you're on the golf course. So I've got to have a game that I'm going to teach you how to go low, but I'm also going to teach you how to be extremely tough mentally. So to start with, I've got to help them now to go to the other end of the spectrum and know when to play safe. Because so many of my better golfers, they think to shoot 68 or 69 or even 72, they think you've got to hit every fairway, not miss greens, and not miss putts inside of 20 feet. And so they're always playing aggressive for the birdie, and they never really know when to back off. And so they'll make 3 birdies and 5 bogeys in 9 holes. And it's like, I've got kids that are making 6 or 7 birdies in a round of 18 and shooting over par. And it's just this nonstop pedal to the metal. And so they haven't learned when to be patient, and that shooting 62, yeah, I understand. I've never shot it, but I would imagine you've got to do everything pretty darn well that day to shoot 62. But even 66, 67, you can miss shots as long as you're making some birdies and being patient the rest of the time. Next thing I think it is about learning the right shot to pick. And I think that my players tend to be very poor on when to pick the right club, right? They're picking driver out on the toughest hole on the course, saying, I've got to advance it because it's a 470 par 4. But I'm telling, I'm trying to help them to realize, yeah, but there's OB and it's the hardest hole on the course because people double bogey this hole. So when should you not pull out driver and actually play for a par? I also see that they struggle with overcoming adversity, right? That it's really hard for them to just let go of it and be like, okay, I made a double. I mean, look at Xander last weekend, right? At the Masters, he dumps down a 6 on 16 and was like, I flushed it. He just was the wrong thing. I mean, he just let go of tens of millions of dollars and was okay to say, but I did what I committed to. And that's what I see a lot of my players, whatever age they are, having a lot of, I would say, weakness or immaturity at that level where it's just frustration and it compounds onto the next hole. I also see that they don't have that ability, like we showed right there, is how to reset. How do you just go ahead and reset and go back out there and on the next hole commit to the next shot? So as you can see, these 2 sections here, they're quite opposing, right? One's about aggression and getting out there, go low and stuff it. The other's about like, how do you be patient? How do you pick the right shot? How do you learn how to reset when you've had a tough hole? And then finally, how do you train harder? How do you train to a level where like, this is so much more difficult than normal play, right? That when I go and play normally, this was super easy. So I'm going to just go ahead and throw it out there to a few. Building mental toughness. Is there anything else that you guys could give me insights as a coach on how I could improve building mental toughness? Does anyone want to throw in an idea here or something we may be missing out? Oh, I've seen a few ideas coming in here. Learn hitting wedges, time management. Yeah, great. So let's hear some. David Lepore, you unmuted yourself on the last one and you didn't chime in time. So I'm going to pick on you this one. Peter said intention. David, what about for you? Anything you'd say specific about helping somebody to develop mental toughness?
I agree with Scott. A lot of students don't have the time management skills, how to purposely practice. And practice makes permanent. And bad practice means you're going to be permanently bad.
Yeah.
And what I tell people is correct practice means you'll gradually get better. And it's not unlike having the carrot in front of the horse pulling the wagon.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of documented that if you set up a practice structure where your players are succeeding about 70 to 75% of the time, they'll stay engaged. If you have them doing things that are impossible, they disengage. And if you have them doing something that's too easy, then they disengage as well.
Exactly. Like that challenge point, right? Like how do you set that challenge point where you're not making them feel terrible, but you're also not setting them up for failure by making it so easy, right? And I think you nailed it right there, Dave. It's like, it's this level of how do I challenge my players at the right level? So it's almost like, when I'm playing with a junior who's struggling, hey, tee it up. No worries, just tee it up. It's a 7-iron, tee it up in the fairway. But you're not going to be doing that to a scratch golfer because you're setting them up for failure. So this is exactly where I think this game fits so well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull this off to the side because there's all these Zoom things on the side. But so this is the game that I play with my players. Okay, so it's 9 holes. You know me, I love getting on the golf course with players, and I love them to learn from their own experience. I found that when I talk to teenagers or even my adults, especially my guys, they just tend not to listen until they feel the pain. So what I want to do is set up a game in 9 holes that I can challenge them, that I can keep up with pace of play because I'm on a busy golf course, that I can use the golf course in a meaningful way and make sure that they're on track, okay? So here's what I do. What I do is I go out there, and I saw someone already commented, on the first hole, I go ahead and have them play the forward tees. So for example, let's go ahead and say I was out on the course 2 weeks ago and we were out with Sydney. So Sydney's normally on the reds, so she went forward to the oranges, which is the junior tees. And I want her to go out there, whereas my boys who are normally on the blues, they're moving forward to the whites. And so they've got that extra 30 to 40 yards that they wouldn't normally have. But here's the key behind it. What I'm telling them on these odd holes, the 5 that they're going to play, is that you have to hit driver unless you can overdrive the green. And so they're getting up on a 10th hole, a dog leg to the right and off the whites. I mean, if they hit driver and they miss it slightly left, they've got a lost golf ball. If they miss it slightly right, they're up on a massive bank, they'll lose their golf ball. But if they hit it good, they're going to drive the green or just be short of it. So what I've done here is force them to get into this way of absolute commitment on their tee shot and also be aggressive. Now, Empire Ranch, the course I'm at, is very open. There's not a ton of trouble when you tee off the blues. But the minute you get forward and you're getting close to the greens, there's all sorts of trouble. So I'm able to build a scenario that puts them in a lot of pressure compared to normally off the blues, they're taking driver off the 10th tee. It's just wide open, plenty of space for them to miss. So once they've hit driver off that tee box, the next thing that I want them to be obviously is aggressive on every shot that they play. So what I want to show them is you're going to go low today because you're going to be hitting chip shots, pitch shots, and wedges into every single hole. And I want you to try and hole your second shot every time. I'm going to get them to play as aggressively as I possibly can and get them to get really comfortable with this opportunity of, chipping onto the green, pitching onto the green, and seeing what they see on a Sunday on the PGA Tour, which is an LPGA Tour, them driving the greens on par 4s and cutting the corners on par 5s. And so what inevitably happens with this game is people will say, well, they'll put it back on me. Well, coach, you tell us to play safe, so I really shouldn't hit driver here because there's trouble. I'm like, no, that's a different game. That's really well done. That's the fundamental. But this game is to challenge you. It's to take you out of your comfort zone, and you're going to go ahead and hit driver. And you're going to put this ball in play. And if not, you're going to have a lost golf ball. And so it really forces them outside of their comfort zone. So then on the next tee box, we go ahead and we want to get to the other side, the other end of the spectrum, and we're going to play worst ball golf. So the beauty here is that first hole usually takes us maybe 10 minutes instead of 15 minutes because they've all bombed it up by the green. They're chipping on, they're making birdies and pars. Now we get to the par 5, and now we're playing worst ball. So that means they tee off twice, okay? Wherever the worst one goes, they go to that golf ball. It's a reverse scramble, right? They hit 2 shots into the par 5. They hit 1 into the bunker. They play it twice from the bunker. They blade 1 out the bunker. They have to play the blade shot. They chip it onto the green to 4 feet. They make the first 4-footer. They miss the second 4-footer. You've got to hit the second 4-foot. You got to go and hit the 1-foot putt again. And so it's really tough and it takes time. And I'm having them play ready golf while they're out there. The max I'll ever do this is with 4 kids in a group, but often we'll just have 3s because it moves along a little bit better. But the idea is they've got to make that mental shift now. And also they're going all the way back to the tips. So now I would put Sydney back to the whites. She's used to playing the reds. Okay. And then I would put the boys who are, if they're on the blues anyway, but I'm going to put them all the way to the back of the tee box. So now I'm making the course as difficult as I possibly can. So what I found with this is when they're picking the worst shot every time, once they've played this game, I would say probably a couple times, they have to go through this a couple times. This is something we'll run through every probably 4 to 6 weeks, is they will start to realize, and I tell them this, if you can't do it twice, you definitely can't do it 4 times. And what I like them to think of is 72 holes, because in a tour event, you're going to have to hit the shot 4 times. So if you can't hit driver off this tee 4 days in a row, why would you be hitting it today? And so it's teaching them how to put the ball in play It's teaching them how to be passive and just play for pars. How do you avoid the bogey? And if you've ever played worst ball golf, it is very difficult not to make bogey, and it's super easy to make a double. And so what I found here is, as I go through this is where their patient level steps up without me having to say anything. I just watch them. And I'll usually be playing with them as well. I'll be playing, and we're just seeing, I'm hitting hybrids off of tee boxes. I'm hitting 7 irons to the middle of the green. I'm 2-putting and getting out of there. It's almost like I've never played in the US Open, but it's like, how do you par your way in? Like, how do I get into the clubhouse? And then from there, I'm showing them how to avoid, to start with, it's doubles and triples, but really I'm going to teach them how to avoid bogeys. And so my goal for them is, can they shoot even par for 9 holes? Because what I'm hoping is, for 5 holes at this challenge point, I'm hoping they're going to make 2 to 3 birdies in those 5 holes, because they're getting to hit driver and chip shots and wedges into the green. And then they're going to play 4 holes, and I'm hoping that they can just passively put the ball in the right place, pick the right shots, play passive, and get off the golf course with pars on those holes, or maybe 1 bogey. And I haven't found another game that helps people to go out there and challenge themselves, but literally go from black to white, black to white, black to white in their head, of a complete mind shift from one hole to the next, of aggression versus passive. And so this is what I've done for, I'm not sure how many years I've been doing this for now, but I know this is the way I get my players ready before a tournament. I tell them, go out and go and play this on the golf course that you're going to play alternate holes for the last 9 holes you're going to play before your final practice round. This is a great way to get the aggressive focus in, but also that passive mindset as you go through this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick on, what am I going to pick on?
Hey, Will.
Yes. Oh, Mike Dixon. Let's hear from Mike.
So I know you're talking like for your lower handicaps and stuff. I actually had this conversation with a student last Saturday. Guy basically is pretty content. Like, he wants to shoot, again, like probably like mid 80s on a good day. And I asked him what tee box he's playing. And I'm like, have you ever played up at the greens, which is like the furthest tee up? And he's like, come on, no way. I'm like, no. I'm like, hear me out. Play the green tees, but you don't get to lay up. You still have to hit driver. And he kind of looked at me, and I'm like, the goal is to see how many birdies you can make. You're not going to make a lot of birdies from the white tees. We know that. Yeah. But it's about getting yourself to be uncomfortable and learn how to be uncomfortable and handle it. So when you are playing back, you can handle that mindset, be like, I can do this. I've done this before. It doesn't matter where I'm playing from. And he's like, that's amazing. I've never thought of it that way. I'm like, Fred Funk did it before he went on tour. He played a ladies tee. He had to get like 6-7 under, and he just had to be comfortable being there.
Yeah, exactly, Mike. And I think I'll give you an example here. Mark Morgan, he's a club champion of a course called Serrano, and he came to me and said, look, well, yeah, I've heard about you. This is probably 5 years ago. I want to work with you. And he played at SC. So UCLA, University of California, and then SC is, what's that one? Southern California, right? It's the big rivalry team, right? So he played for them. So he's a good golfer, and he's a financial guy now. And we went out there, and he just hits this little toe draw kind of thing all day long. And I put him off the front tees, and I said, let's go. And we're just going to do 9 holes off the front tees. And he shot 31. So he shot 5 under. And I said, look, that's all you're going to play now. You're just going to play from the forward tee. So remember those challenge points, like you said, David. It's like you might need to just take this game to start with, because my players have all played both of these games at certain times, but I'm now combining them, and just have them play the forward tees. He went on to go and qualify for the US Amateur, the Senior Amateur, the British Senior Amateur, won a bunch of events, and just transformed his golf game. I think he bought a 10-pack 5 years. This is no lie. He bought a 10-pack of sessions 5 years ago, and we've probably used 6 of them. And he's played the best golf of his life. And I see him, once or twice a year. We do a playing lesson, but that helped him transform to, like you said, Mike, get tons of birdie opportunities in front of him, so that he'd get comfortable that when you do play a tough course and you hit it in the trees, guess what? Pitch out to wedge distance, wedge on, and make your par. So it does such a great job to give people an opportunity to go low and then to move back to those regular tees that they're off and feel comfortable. And I've done this with many juniors who've gone out and shot 63. And it was that, confidence level of, I've done it. and then gone back to regular tees and gone and made 5 or 6 birdies in a round and shot a 67 just because they got comfortable shooting under par. And then I think the second game, that worst ball golf, it's just such a mentally tough game to play. And it's so difficult that when you're playing that game and you do that the day before a tournament, it sends you into the tournament with this mindset like, I've only got to make this 6-footer once. It's just not that difficult. And I think when you combine these two together, that's where the magic really happens, because it's making them, like we said, hot and cold, hot and cold. It's very difficult. You'll hear from my better players a lot of fun smiles, and then the next hole, a lot of whining. And I love it because I'm challenging them at a point where I know they're capable and going through this process. So what I suggest for you this week is look at the player in front of you first, right? This might not be the perfect game yet for one of your students. Maybe it's just to go ahead and help them get off the forward tees and go low. That might be the game. And maybe it's just for 3 holes because you've only got an hour playing lesson. So adapt all of this stuff that we're saying, right, to work for the player in front of you. But maybe you've got that player who is the 6 handicap, who thinks he needs to be a better ball striker, and send him on the golf course and have him go ahead and play worst ball golf for 5 holes and start to show him that really all you've got to do is keep the ball somewhere in play and somewhere around the green and have a decent short game, and you won't make a bogey. And so remember that the games we're trying to implement on a golf course, it's about having those aha moments for our players where they realize, oh my goodness, this is what I have to change in my game. This is have to see it from a new angle, rather being told by us as professionals, you shouldn't hit driver here, or you shouldn't play those tee boxes. It just doesn't help. There's no change happening when you're being told, right? If you've got kids, you've all experienced that, right? You tell them to do something, nothing ever really happens, Whereas you've got to show them, and they learn from it through the experience. So I would just challenge each of you this week to go out there and implement a playing lesson like this. And so if you have somebody who's struggling, who's like, well, I'm not sure if I want to join your playing assessment. I'm not sure if I want to get on the course. I want to do private lessons on my own. Say, look, just come and play a game of golf with us. We're going to get on the golf course and we're going to play. And when you go and do a game like this and they leave, it's so impactful for them that even if they decide not to sign up, guess what? They're telling everybody about your coaching. And that's what we want to do, right? We're looking to revolutionize golf instruction by guaranteeing results for golfers. If you want to guarantee results for golfers, you have to get them on the course and you have to have them have their aha moments. So everybody, I hope this helped. If there's any comments, feedback, drop it in there. But what I'd love to hear again is always feel free to go ahead. You can email me, will@rgxcoach.com. I would love to hear updates on, I did it this week and this happened. At the same time, for any of you, here's my cell phone number. I also love to see texts from you guys and gals and seeing like, I just did this. It was amazing. And then for some of you who maybe not in RGX yet and might want to start a journey on getting your business better, getting better games for your students, reach out. Let's get on a call. It's rgx.com explore. Let's talk about what you're doing, what your goals are. But for everybody, make it an amazing week. And I look forward to seeing you next week and continuing the conversation. Thanks, everyone.